All right, let's talk about something that every UX designer runs into, especially when you're starting out. You've done the work, right? You've got pages and pages of notes from user interviews, tons of data. But then what? How do you turn all that stuff into a case study that makes a recruiter sit up and say, wow, this person really gets it? That's the difference between a good case study and a great one. And that's what we're going to crack open today. So here's the game plan. First, we're going to talk about this huge red flag for recruiters, what I call the thinking light trap. Then we'll get to the heart of it, the difference between an observation and an insight. I'll show you a super simple trick, the because transformation, to level up your thinking. We'll look at some real examples, and then we'll tie it all together and talk about why this is seriously a game changer for getting hired. All right, first up, the thinking light trap. And believe me, this is probably the number one thing that makes recruiters pause when they're looking at a portfolio. So I want you to really think about this for a second. Look at your last case study. Is it just a data dump? You know, a big pile of user quotes, a list of problems you found? Or does it actually tell a compelling story about what all that stuff really means? Because honestly, that difference is absolutely everything. And it's so easy to fall into this trap, right? You think, hey, I wrote down exactly what the user said. That's an insight. Or, I made a list of all their problems. I must really understand them. You might even think that the more data you show, the smarter you look. But here's the tough truth. That's not the job. Your job isn't just to be a court reporter telling us what happened. It's to be a detective telling us why. And that idea, the what versus the why, that brings us right to the core of what we're talking about today, the huge critical difference between an observation and an insight. I love this little chart because it just makes it so clear. On one side, you've got observation. That's the what. It's the raw data, the facts. It just describes what's happening. But on the other side, you've got insight. And that's the magic. That's the why. It's not just data. It's your interpretation of that data. It doesn't just describe reality. It explains it. Okay, let's break that down. Think of yourself as a security camera. An observation is just what that camera records. It's the facts, and only the facts. No opinions, no judgments, no, I think they did that because. It's the pure, simple answer to the question, what happened? That's it. So, in your research notes, this looks like user paused for a full 10 seconds before hitting the confirm payment button, or maybe user reopened the same screen twice, or you literally have a quote that says, I'm not sure if this will work. See, these are all just facts. They're totally objective, and they're super important. But by themselves, they don't really tell us what to do next. Now, an insight. This is where you, the designer, earn your paycheck. An insight takes one of those facts and breathes life into it. It explains why it matters. It connects that weird little behavior you saw to a deeper human thing, a motivation, a fear, a desire. It answers the most important question of all. So what? Why should we care? Okay, that sounds great in theory, right? But how do you actually do it? How do you reliably turn a boring fact into a mind-blowing insight? Well, it's actually way simpler than you might think, and it all comes down to one powerful little tool. It's basically a 3-step recipe. Step 1, just state your plain, simple observation. The user paused for 10 seconds. Step 2, channel your inner 5-year-old and just keep asking why. Seriously, why did they pause? Well, maybe they were nervous. Why were they nervous? Maybe they were afraid of making a mistake. And then step 3, you put it all together. You build your insight using the magic word, because. And this right here, this is the golden rule. If there's one thing you take away today, let it be this. This is your personal insight detector. If you've written something down that you think is an insight, try to stick the word because in there. If it doesn't make sense, if you can't connect a cause to an effect, then you probably don't have an insight yet. You just have a statement. All right, enough theory. Let's see this thing in action. We're going to look at a couple of examples to see how one big, powerful idea can suddenly make a bunch of random facts snap into focus. So picture this. You're working on a food delivery app. During your user tests, you see a few things over and over again. People scroll and scroll and scroll. They click into one restaurant, then back out, then into another. And after all that, what do? They just give up and order the same pizza they always get. These are your observations, your what. So what's the why behind all that? Here's the insight that ties it all together. It's because when you're hungry, you don't want a million choices. You want food fast. All those options, they aren't a feature. They're a bug. It's decision fatigue. It's mentally exhausting. See? That one simple idea explains everything we just saw. That's a powerful insight. Okay, let's switch gears completely. Let's say you're working on a fintech app, something that moves money around. Your observations are different here. Users are super hesitant before they confirm a transfer. They read every single word of a warning pop-up. And when something goes wrong, they almost always blame themselves. So what's the unifying thread here? It's one word: fear. The big insight is that users are terrified of making a mistake they can't undo. That fear of losing real money is what makes them slow down, seek reassurance, and be extra careful. We just connected a core human emotion, fear, to a specific behavior, hesitation. Now you know what to design for. You're not just designing a button, you're designing reassurance. Okay, let's bring this all back to the real world, to your portfolio and your next job interview. Why do recruiters and hiring managers care so much about this? Simple. They're not hiring you to be a reporter. They're hiring you to be an interpreter. Because when a recruiter sees a case study that's just a long list of what happened, they start making some pretty bad assumptions about you. They think, okay, this person's analytical skills are kinda weak. Or they're probably more of a UI designer who just paints pretty pictures, not a real strategic thinker. And the worst one, they can point out problems, but they can't figure out how to actually solve them. So let's make this super concrete. Here's how this looks in your actual writing. The before version is just reporting. Users struggled during checkout. Okay, so what? It's weak. Now look at the after version, the good one. Synthesis revealed that users slowed down during checkout because of a fear of irreversible errors. See? It tells you the why. It uses smart language like cognitive load and hesitation. This doesn't just say there's a problem, it shows you understand the problem on a deep level. And really, it all comes down to this. This is the single most important thing to burn into your brain. No company is looking to hire another person just to take notes during a user test. They've got tools for that. They are hiring you for your brain. They need you to connect the dots, to understand the messy human stuff underneath the clicks and taps, and to turn that understanding into a brilliant solution. You are not hired to observe. You are hired to interpret. So, here's my challenge to you. The next time you finish up your research and you're staring at that mountain of data, take a breath and ask yourself, am I about to just report what happened, or am I ready to do the hard work, the real work, and interpret what it all means? Your answer to that question is going to define not just your next case study, but your entire career.